Hey, welcome back to my channel. Today I'd like to talk about one of my favorite movies of all time. A movie that when I saw it back in March of 2007, I absolutely fell in love with it. Although I had an obsession with the case beforehand, I read both of the books that the movie is based upon. And that movie is Zodiac, directed by David Fincher. Starring Robert Downey Jr. as Paul Avery, Jake Gyllenhaal as Robert Greatsmith. You have Mark Ruffalo in there as Dave Toschi. You have John Carroll Lynch as Arthur Lee Allen, who was probably the #1 suspect for many years in the Zodiac killings, but they unfortunately, never got him. They interviewed him once in the movie. They show that interview. I'm going to spoil this movie. It's based on a true story out of San Francisco of murders that started happening in the late 60s and went through the 70s. Not the murders, but letters to the San Francisco Chronicle and the police department. And the movie chronicles pretty much from the late 60s up until the early 90s. That's where we end the movie. Now, I read the books by Robert Greatsmith. There's 2 books in the Zodiac case by Robert Greatsmith, Zodiac and Zodiac Unmasked. And when I read those, before this movie came out, this is years before this movie came out, I read those books. And I was fascinated by the story, how they never caught this guy, how he was kind of needling the police on and terrorizing the public through these letters. I mean, honestly, he only killed so many people. I mean, he killed enough people, obviously. I'm not downplaying what he did, but it's just fascinating that he was able to get away and go undetected. I mean, the police did have suspects, a lot of suspects they liked. Arthur Lee Allen was probably the #1 suspect. And in the movie, they definitely point a lot of fingers towards Arthur Lee Allen without coming out and saying he was the Zodiac. Because I'm going to spoil the ending right now. Arthur Lee Allen died. There was some information that came about in the early 90s. One of the guys who survived one of the attacks, Mike Mayhew was his name, and they questioned him after the books came out by Robert Graysmith. The police were re-energized their investigation a little bit, especially the Vallejo Police Department, and they tracked down this Mike Mayhew, who disappeared after his encounter with the Zodiac. Nobody knew where he was for years, and then they found him, and they showed him a lineup of pictures. They showed us in the movie. It's also in the book, and he fingered Arthur Lee Allen. And at the end of the movie, they don't show them going to talk to Arthur Lee Allen or anything. They never got to do it. They had a meeting about it, and before they can question him or go and pick him up, he had a massive heart attack and passed away. Now, I know later on they did a DNA, because back then they didn't have DNA or any of that stuff, the high-tech forensic stuff they have today. They did a DNA sample on a fingerprint on one of the letters, and it says it wasn't Arthur Lee Allen's, but to this day, nobody really knows. And actually, the police might not, some of the police departments that were involved still have an active investigation to it. Not that there's somebody, I'm sure they don't have somebody, but if somebody came in with some new information, they would definitely be ready to go. This movie was made by David Fincher between Paramount and Warner Brothers. It was like a co-production. Because it's a long movie. It's 2 hours and 40-some minutes long. If you don't have patience or a long attention span, I don't know if you'll dig this movie. I love it. I've watched it many times over the years. I saw it twice in the movie theaters when I saw it initially. My wife and I went to see it, and I loved it so much I went back and saw it again. To me, this is one of the perfect movies ever made. It was a crime it didn't get nominated for an Academy Award. Not that that's the be-all, end-all of if a movie's really good or not. And I know this is just my opinion, obviously. There might be people out there that hate this movie, and that's fine. I can see it's not for everybody. It just captured my imagination, and just the way it's shot. I mean, David Fincher is one of our master filmmakers, no doubt. And even in Alien 3, which he got a lot of problems with the studio, and I know he disowns that film pretty much because he got screwed over by the producers in the studio, from Seven, Fight Club, which is awesome, this movie, Gone Girl, and other movies. I'm blanking right now, I'm sorry. But the man is a master filmmaker, and his attention to detail is incredible. Just the things in this movie, when there's a scene with this couple at Lake Berryessa, and it's chronicled in the book, but in the movie, I was doing a little research, and actually they flew trees in to plant at the lake when they were going to shoot this scene, because it's changed a lot since '69, and they wanted to look just like it did on the day this couple was attacked by the Zodiac. The girl died, the guy lived. A matter of fact, in the movie, David Fincher didn't want to show any murders that there wasn't a survivor that could corroborate everything that took place that day. There was a murder previous to Lake Berryessa, and even this other one on the 4th of July that happened that they opened the movie with. And they didn't use that murder because both people died, so there was no eyewitness account to go by. So he only shows the murders and the situations that happened where there was actually a survivor. So really, you only see 3 murders, although the one murder in a cab, which is the 3rd murder they show, the murders happen pretty much all in the first hour. After that, it's more about the obsession of the police department, Vallejo Police Department, San Francisco Police Department, and a couple other ones that are looking for this guy. And there's some really good people trying to figure out who's doing these murders and sending these letters to the Chronicle and other newspapers and making these threats, a lot of which he never did. Like, he threatened to shoot at the tires on a school bus and kill the kids as they come bouncing out of the school bus. That never happened. And some other things with bombs and that never materialized, but he threatened to do. And if you read, I recommend reading the books if you like true crime stuff that are really fascinating. The first book really details the murders and all the letters and stuff. And this movie really turns into a police procedural between the police and then this guy named Robert Graysmith, who was a cartoonist for the San Francisco Chronicle, who got so obsessed with it that he had more information on the Zodiac than anyone. And his marriage failed because of it, because he was so obsessed that he wasn't taking care of his family as well as he should have been. Dave Toschi, the policeman who actually, he was the one who Steve McQueen followed around as kind of like an advisor and giving him tips on how to be a cop for the movie Bullet. So that's a little trivia. They even mentioned in the film how Steve McQueen, the way he has his gun holster, he got that from Dave Toschi. Anthony Edwards is also in this movie, who it's always good to see Anthony Edwards show up in that movie. He doesn't do as much as he used to, but he's just a likable guy, and he plays Dave Toschi's partner, Armstrong, and they're really good together. They play off each other well. Jake Gyllenhaal's great as Robert Graysmith. Robert Downey Jr. is awesome as Paul Avery. Now, John Carroll Lynch plays Arthur Lee Allen, as I said in the beginning of this review, who was the main suspect. And there's a scene in the movie where Armstrong and Toschi and Jack Molinex from the Vallejo Police Department go and interview Arthur Lee Allen at his job. And they take them into this big break room, and they bring him in. And he just looks like this normal, husky guy, not very threatening at first. And they sit down, they start having a conversation, they start asking him questions about different things, where he was in certain points in time, to see if he, any information they can get from him. And the one cop asked a question of him, and his demeanor changes like that. And in that moment, even as a viewer, you feel like this guy's dangerous. Like, just like that, he goes from kind of jovial, not joking or anything, but just a pleasant guy, to being like, just the look he gives the cops and the way his voice changes a little bit. You almost feel like this guy can get up from the chair and kill all 3 men if he wanted to. Just like that. And then after a minute, he goes back to being kind of more polite, a little standoffish, but more polite. But just in that moment, it's very well acted. John Carroll Lynch knocks it out of the park in that moment. And Mark Ruffalo and Anthony Edwards sell it. And he has a watch with the Zodiac symbol on it, which the Zodiac has been putting in his letters. So they think he's the Zodiac. Like, they wanted to take him in, but there's not enough evidence. Because they were trying to get suspects through handwriting evidence, because all these letters they have, and their handwriting experts said it's not him. But there's claims that he's ambidextrous, so everybody's saying that he can write really well with his right hand, even though he's left-handed. Just stuff like that, little details. And David Fincher shoots it in a way where it's absolutely gorgeous. It's perfectly shot. I know they did in some scenes, they use some CGI as set extensions. Like if they're on a street, they extend the street with set extensions, and you can't even tell. He hides it very well, and he's always been good with that with CGI. He hides it where you don't really know it's there. It's just a tool, and he doesn't throw it in your face. It's just very well done. And basically, it's all the movie's about is these guys trying to track down who the Zodiac is, their obsession with it. It costs, well, Robert Graysmith, his family. Paul Avery, who was the main reporter for the Chronicle, is trying to, find out who this guy is too. And his ending in the story in the movie ends about halfway through. He's obsessed with it as well. He can't find him. Finally, the Zodiac threatens his life in a letter that he sends to him, or a card that he sends to him. And after that, his life kind of falls apart. He starts drinking a lot, even though he was, just partying a lot, doing cocaine. And by the time Robert Graysmith decides he was going to write a book on the Zodiac, Paul Avery is living on a houseboat. He's divorced, and all he does is sit around and drink all day. And he's working for this little newspaper that nobody cares about. His life definitely took a turn, a 360 turn. But I highly recommend this movie. This movie is fantastic. It definitely is one of the best, my favorite movies of all time. Top 10. I won't even try to hide it. I love this movie. I just watched it again last night. I had to do a review about it. I know I've been doing Friday the 13th. My reviews are very random. It's whatever I'm in the mood for. I am going to do all the Friday the 13th movies. But look, man, I just love movies, and I like to share this with you. Anybody who's watching, anybody who cares. I've been in the movies for a long time, since I was a kid, and it's cool to be able to do this and just share my thoughts on some things I'm passionate about. Yeah, I would give this movie a 10 out of 10. And I know people probably think I'm nuts, but I just love this movie. There's certain movies in my mind that I think are perfect that might not be to other people, but this is one of them. I'd give it a 10 out of 10. This movie's legit, well made, well acted, well scripted, and it's absolutely fascinating. If you like true crime stories, you can't go wrong with this movie. Like I said, again, in the movie, they point a lot of fingers at Arthur Lee Allen, but they don't come out and say he's the Zodiac. And there was other leads as well. If you read the book, they go into more detail. This movie throws them in there here and there, but they mostly concentrate on Arthur Lee Allen once they get deep into the investigation. And even towards the end of the movie, Jake Gyllenhaal's character, Robert Graysmith, goes to Dave Tosky's house late at night, and he invites him to go out for a early breakfast. They go to his diner, and he gives Tosky information that Tosky didn't even know about because he's been able to go into files at these other police departments. And back then, there was no internet. They had to fax it to each other, send it in the mail, and things moved very slow, and they weren't very good coordinated with these different communities that were investigating these crimes. And Dave Tosky looks at him and he's like, write the book. Just write the book. This will help more than anything. And then that's where they part ways. And then it jumps to the book coming out, and they find Mike Mayhew. There's a new police chief in Vallejo, and he goes sees him. That's what I was saying in the beginning. And he points Arthur Lee Allen out in this lineup of pictures that he shows him. It's all great stuff. Like I said, it's a long movie, but to me, in my mind, not a moment's wasted. Every minute counts in this movie, and it keeps giving you more information, and you discover new things as the characters discover things. And if anything I'm saying sounds interesting, I would check it out. Don't be fooled. There's another movie called The Zodiac that has nothing to do with this movie. It is loosely based on the Zodiac. I've never seen it, but from what I heard, it's terrible. This movie's just called Zodiac, and it's directed by David Fincher, and I highly recommend it. 10 out of 10 for me. I absolutely love this movie. Have a great day, and I'll be back soon. Thanks. Bye.